Hey everyone, welcome to Pitching Perspectives Inside the Mound, episode 4. Today I have with us is Gunnar Leger, the pitching coach at ULL. How you doing today, Gunnar?
What's up, Dylan? How's it going, man?
ULL pitching staff, man, y'all are tearing it up. I did a little bit of research, and over the past 10 years since y'all had a good year, or they had a good year, you weren't there yet because this is your first year, correct?
Yes.
Your pitching coach, yeah. So 2021 had a pretty good year on the mound, and then in 2017 they had a really good year on the mound. And you probably would know a little bit about the 2017 team because you were the dude on the mound that year. You were the
Yeah.
ace. So kind of tell us. It's kind of crazy because you're a part of two of the best pitching staffs in the past 10 years for ULL with 2017, and then obviously on pace for this year in 24. So talk a little bit about what it's been like being on both sides of that, a player and a coach, and being involved with some of the best at this school.
Yeah, man. Well, I I like to I show it to our recruits all the time. Coach Robe used to always show us this little graphic that he had made, and it was basically from when he took the program over. And it was basically, I think it was 90, mid 90s, something like that. But it was basically like 25 years. And from when he took over, and they were kind of like, you know, towards the bottom half of the conference in ERA and some of the statistics and stuff like that. And basically, after he got it moving a little bit, they were basically top three for the next 20 plus years. And I know there's a couple years mixed in there where it's maybe 4, 5, 6, something like that. But I always tell our guys, Coach Deggs doesn't love it because he's a hitting guy, but this program was built on pitching, and
Yeah.
and we believe that we are pitching in this conference, and that's what it should be, in my opinion. The bedrock of this place has been quality pitching with quality local arms that know how to get guys out, understand the game, can control the game, stuff like that. So that was what he taught us, in my time there. And 2017 was really that whole freshman class that got there in 2015 after they had the great year in 14 was just it was a bunch of talented dudes that they had lost a lot really from that year with the draft and just graduating from 14. And so we walked in and almost we had to have opportunity. Those innings had to come from somewhere. And so we got forced into a lot of big situations quickly and kind of had to, as Coach Rowe would say, drink out of the water hose. But, I think that made us grow up really quick. And so we got a lot of had a lot of skin in the game in 2017. And I think that's kind of why you saw that year come together for really all of us. That whole class had a good year.
Yeah, and speaking of Coach Robe, I mean, obviously you got to play under him, and I mean, what are your core values for your pitching staff that you're currently coaching right now, and kind of how are you intermingling Coach Robe's probably old school style that I'm sure you're still using some of, and your new school style of pitching, and kind of merging those things together and what those values are for your staff?
Well, Coach Robe was it was so much bigger than just pitching or just baseball, and it was more of a play on life and using the game to grow us as people. So you got a lot of that mixed in there with kind of the pitchability aspect and the mental side of the game and controlling momentum and controlling the run game and reading swings and reading setups in the box and box adjustments and barrel angle. And I mean, I could go on and on. We used to get binders full of stuff with obviously he was old school, so it was binders full of pictures and things like that. We didn't have PowerPoints or anything like that. He wasn't that tech savvy, but obviously with where the game's gone, with all of the analytics, and I mean, you could go down any rabbit hole you wanted to go down with that. And I feel like it's forever changing, and they seem to find something new that is just as important as the last thing that was the big deal last year. So
value is constantly changing. I mean, since I've been digging deep into it, I mean, it was spin rate, then it was velocity, then it's induced vertical break, then it's vertical approach angle. Like it's constantly, and I mean, ultimately, I mean, you're looking for unicorns.
I think the biggest thing or the cool thing is all the stuff that he taught us and talked about, pitch sequencing, tunneling, changing speeds on a linear path and stuff like that is really the analytics really just give us a better picture of that, or like we understand that, right? And we can see that better than, just trusting your eye, which obviously you can't really even see those things unless you have the Edgertronic cameras and the TrackMans and stuff like that, right? We're just kind of guess and check, if you will, with grips and spins and stuff. So I would say the biggest thing for me that I wanted to make sure that we were good at this year. Like I tell all of our guys, your job is not to win the game; it's to give us a chance to win. And I think there's a big difference there. And Coach used to always tell us, stay away from the big innings. And for him, it was specifically 3-run innings.
Yeah, freaking numbers.
Yeah, crooked numbers. So we were always just managing the inning and not letting kind of the inning manage us, if you will. So, we would pitch different or attack hitters differently if, just the old like trade a run for an out, or we're taking our best pitch and we're going to, like he would say their go zone, or like where do they want the ball? Where's their barrel going, right? Like we're going to chase contact in that area. Or are we trying to get a strikeout? Are we trying to finish? Just different things like that. I think the big thing, in today's game is obviously walks are up a little bit, but also hitters are a lot better. Velo is the norm now. So, um, I think that if you allow too many free passes or you get in too many negative counts, the hitter's going to make you pay for it more than ever now. I think
Right.
it's really just about keeping the ball in the ballpark. So for us, it's just getting ahead, controlling the momentum of the game, giving us a chance to win. Um, this fall we spent a lot of time on, I call it our 3 Ps, like people, process, and product. Um, people being like, it don't matter if you're Mike Trout, if you're a bad person, it's going to show up at some point, right? So just making sure we're making the right decisions on and off the field, and then kind of creating that process and that roadmap, and combining, the pitchability aspect, the colored plate, pitch sequencing, reading hitters, controlling the game, stuff like that. Combining that with our TrackMans and our True Media and our Edge videos, and creating a repertoire that you can believe in and you can consistently execute. Like I tell our guys, I think this kid, this day and age, and it's not their fault. They grow up with it. It's everywhere. It's how can I get 300 more spin rate on my slider, or like it needs to have a better shape, or my fastball needs more ride. And I always tell them, your pitching is too complex for everything that we go chase to try to gain. You're giving up something. Like it's
Yeah.
not just a net gain,
And
right?
that's what I've noticed too recently is that a lot of kids are trying to chase changing their process constantly instead of just
Yep.
trusting one and letting the results play out.
Yep. And again, I don't even know that. Like I said, I don't think that's their fault. Like I spoke at the LBCA this year, and that was like one of the main things I talked about. Is I think half the battle is learning how to manage the kid amongst, like, in his world, right? Like you have to learn how he learns, and learn like who's he follow on Instagram, who's he follow on Twitter, who's his coach, like what's the cues that he's learned, right? Because I think that they're flooded with so much information. Like they know what it's supposed to look like, right? Because they could Google what is Jacob DeGrom's process, or what is Clayton Kershaw's process, and they could find a bunch of good stuff, right?
Right.
But it's kind of helping them navigate it and like line it up, because like you said, it can be, if you didn't commit to something, you're going to go in a million different directions. And
Right.
that's what I tell them. I'm like, all development is just getting quality information, and it's consistent quality reps over time in the same process, right? So it's, if I continue to change the process, I don't become a master of anything. And that's what I tell them. Like, I could give the best information in the world at this time to, John, and I could give the worst information to, you know, Bob. And if Bob's more consistent than John, Bob's going to get better than John, even though
Right.
he's got worse information. And so I think that's the biggest thing for them that I've tried to help them just navigate this world. Because I think if there's no direction and there's no consistency, it's, I couldn't imagine doing it if I didn't have, someone kind of helping me through it.
If you had to evaluate a game performance and you didn't have access to watching the game or seeing the game at all, what is your key metrics or your key performance indicators that, hey, this guy's still on track, he's doing well, just got unlucky? What metrics or statistics are you kind of looking at to stay in?
Uh, on a, I guess, a simple level, I would say pitch count per inning. Nothing really good ever happens after 15 pitches, to be honest with you. So, what is their pitch count per inning? Obviously, walks and Ks. What's that look like? Ideally, 3-1 is best. Um,
Yeah, we did this when I was at Barb. So I would obviously our goal. I had this little strike chart that I kept, and our goal was 13 pitches or less per inning.
yeah,
Um, Anytime, and then I also over the course of the fall, I started keeping track of and past the 15 pitch count in an inning. You would be surprised at how many more balls are thrown than strikes after
no
15.
doubt.
When fatigue starts to set in too,
Yeah.
so you usually start to get tired there. So balls and misses are going to escalate quickly.
And then one thing that we tracked pretty heavily in the fall, just stressing execution, just like total execution percentage on whatever pitch was called within our system. So, if you
How are
stay,
you tracking that?
so obviously there's a guy next to me
Mhm.
that knows the pitch that's called, and usually I watch in the fall. I watch the game from behind the pitcher, kind of like off to whatever side
Yep.
in center field, like shallow center. And so I basically just tell the guy next to me like yes or no. Is that an execution or not? And then we have videos, like I could always go back, but we just trying to track it live, and we made a little competition out of it. Um, and the goal for them was to stay above 60. Like 60 is 50. Odds are that if you caught a couple breaks, that you had a decent outing. 60 is like kind of the standard. 70 and above, odds are you had a pretty good day. You
So
know,
on the
um,
execution side, I got a question real quick. So if we're going, I'll say fastball glove side, okay,
mhm.
execution, trying to execute, and it ends up arm side for a whiff. Is that an execution check or no? No. Okay, that's
No.
what I
So
was.
it's execution on our pitch. Like what
Right.
they do is irrelevant. So, and you would be surprised. Like we had a couple guys where they had great outings. Like three
And they
scoreless, no
execute like
hits.
that.
Yeah, it's like 48%. And I'm
Yeah.
like, look, man. And then we had guys that were 65%, and they gave up a couple runs. And then sure enough, just over time, you
Part of
see,
yeah, it'll play itself out. That guy
yeah,
will separate himself.
and that's what I tell them. I'm like, look, I know that you're happy with your outing, and I mean, you competed well, like you worked yourself out of some things, but over time, this will play out. And our game is not, and that's what I always stress to them. The game is really no different than a bullpen, and that's what I try to get them to understand. Is you're just executing our plan. There
Yep.
just happens to be a hitter in the box, like, and there's fans here today. It doesn't change what we're trying to do. So you just execute the pitch that's called, or you execute like what you see, or you know, um, just control the game, right? But it's we're just executing our system,
Yeah.
and working our plan, and over time, a good product is going to bear out, and it's going to show what we want it to show.
What are your favorite bullpen scripts? Like if a player's not working on
Um,
anything, something you can kind of to get them to engage, because I know sometimes it can get monotonous going in the pen and hey, I don't
yep.
really work on anything. I'm the ace. Like probably need to give those guys something. I mean, what are your kind of favorite thing you go to?
Out of season, I structured it a lot more for them. So like in the fall, it was more structured. Um, where maybe we did the first half in the stretch, second half in the windup, or like the whole, we would kind of pick there. Then as far as like pitches thrown, um, earlier in the fall, we focused more like fastball change, then kind of picked up the breaking balls. For a while, we were just strictly fastball. But I give them at least here, I give them a lot of leeway and ownership into like what the focus is for the pen that day. Obviously, if say me and a guy, or me and a kid are working on developing a certain pitch, then obviously we may consistently spend some time with that pitch for a week or two. But for the most part, I always tell them like, and I didn't come up with this. I think somebody put it on Twitter not that long ago. Just pick a focus, right? Like
Mm.
what are what are we focusing on, right? If it's a pitch, then we're worried about the pitch. But then also, I need you to go deeper. Like, are we worried about the execution of the pitch? Or are we worried about the total, like the shape of the pitch and the pitch itself,
Yeah.
right? Because then that changes the focus
I've
as well.
found that to be an issue a lot of times, like when I was working with high school kids, is coach, I need to work on my breaking ball. Okay, well, what about your breaking ball do you need to work on? Is it the shape? Is it
Yeah,
landing early in counts, or is it getting chases late in counts, like starting in the zone and getting out of the zone? Those are all three
yeah,
totally separate things. But a lot of times when a
no
kid gets
doubt.
in the bullpen and it's just, oh, I'm working on my breaking ball, and they're just throwing lollipops in there, and they're like, oh, I got a lot better today. And they wonder why in a game they can't get a chase and the curveball's getting like, they don't know, I guess, what area to focus and that how they can dive deep into pitch and what part of the plan do you need to get better with that pitch.
Yep. Well, and that's kind of like where I guess our system comes into play and how we label things with easy extra miss,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. To where like when I would structure it, maybe we start with, you know, 12 to 15 fastballs, and then we go into like off speed work off the fastball. The biggest thing that I guess I didn't like it as a player, and I don't think it is good as especially when you're on the mound, and you're high intent, is just throwing like 12 breaking balls in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just because it's never really going to happen,
Yeah, I
you
call it
know?
block training.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
where you get up there and you throw, I don't know, 20 straight fastballs, 20 straight changeups, 20, like you're going to get good at it eventually. That's like if I set a
yeah,
free throw line and I shot 100, I'm going to get pretty damn good pretty soon.
no
Okay.
doubt.
If I
No
start
doubt.
moving around and then I start going back to the free throw line, which is what you're going to do in a game, like you're going to be mixed. Now,
Yep.
are you going to be doubling and tripling and maybe quadrupling? Yeah, you are,
Sure.
but you're going to get better and make adjustments quicker as the more you throw of each pitch. So, like to make it more challenging in a pin setting is, hey, you can't throw 2 or more in a row of the same pitch. See
No
how
doubt.
high you can get in zone rate or whatever you want. But
Yep.
obviously, constantly changing is going to be the toughest thing than just throwing 15 straight. Like the percentage is probably going to be pretty good, and it's probably going to be really good towards the back half.
No doubt. And I mean, we do the competition pins. We do like loud bullpens where I basically put them in a tunnel of people. Like I just wrap the whole staff around
Yeah,
them,
awesome. I've seen
and they have fun with
spring
that.
training. They do it with bunting, I guess, because big leaguers don't know how to bunt.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
get them out there bunting on the field, and they got the entire spring training roster hounding
Yeah.
around them, all surrounding the plate. It's pretty
Yeah.
fun.
So we mess with that. But like I said, the biggest thing is that's where I feel like, because at the end of the day, I'm obviously trying to get them better and inevitably help us win games through that, right? But trying to prepare them for the next level. And like I tell them, like nobody's going to hold your hand. They're going to tell you to be ready for this date. You're going to show up, and then you're going to just have to go to work, and you're going to have to get
Right.
better. And you may have some, obviously, and I think that's why kids are getting so much better now. You have the treads and the drive lines, and then you can go a place where they can structure it for you, right?
Right.
But I mean, a lot of kids, like more than probably the majority of the kid doesn't have access to that, right? And so just helping them understand how to create a process in general, right? Like what does a quality day look like? What's a quality week look like? Like what's the next step?
Yeah.
Um,
What you said,
and
like getting them ready for the next level, like that was one of the biggest things I struggled with in high school or coaching high school baseball was, well, especially when I was at Barb. So we had a lot of really good players. You know, the program you played there,
yeah,
like we can win games just throwing BP. We really can.
yeah, yeah,
We just threw BP over the plate, not to
yeah,
let everybody throw it 50 miles an hour. We're going to win 95% of our games. Now,
yeah,
that's where I found like, hey, this isn't fun for me. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like I'm wanting to develop and get players better, but sometimes that's not good in the short-term scheme of things. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
hey, it might throw a little bit more balls right now because we're trying to work on throwing his breaking ball a little more, trying to get him working on and getting into different positions to throw a little harder, or whatever
yeah,
it might be. Like in the short term, he's probably not going to be very good.
yeah,
But hopefully, long term, he could be. If he figures these things out, he could be really good and could pitch at the next level.
yep,
So that's kind of where I struggled with in high school, and then I really want to get guys better like that.
yeah,
And obviously, I mean, yeah, I could still get guys better, but that was the whole fact behind the thing is that we can just throw BP with an L screen out there, and we're gonna beat 95% of the.
yeah,
If we
yeah,
really want to just be really good, I mean, I could just teach our guys to throw BP, and we'd win. But
Yeah, no doubt.
high school and college it's different. Like in high school, other teams lose games. You really don't have to win that many. And we're in college. I mean, you probably noticed it. I mean, you have to beat teams.
No doubt.
You got to go out there and beat them. They're not going to hand you stuff. Whereas in high school, at that level that I've been coaching, I mean, teams hand you games where they're kicking balls, walking guys, or whatever. Like 95% of the games that I coached, the other team lost. We didn't really.
Well, and especially at Barb, it's a brand, it's
exactly. And the other team's already terrified and they're nervous. Yeah. It's the biggest game they've played. So that adds to it where they're going to kick more balls and walk more guys and everything.
Yep. So. Yep. And you run into the same thing in college. Like it's because at some point, like I tell our guys, I mean, I grew up a coach's son, so I can understand the business side of it. Right. And I tell our guys, you got to understand, this is not, there's people's house payments depending on your decisions, and so this is bigger than you just go and play ball, right? So there's got to be some intent and some focus with what we do, not only for you, right? Which is why we're all here, to make you better, and we enjoy being around you guys. That's why we brought you here. We thought you could have success here, but at the same time, you're putting a lot into an 18 to 21-year-old hands, and so that's really the biggest thing is balancing development with success, immediate success, and production, and just all of it that goes with how to win a game. But also, you want to get them better for the next level, because at the end of the day, that's how you get good players. I believe at the college level, I always tell our guys, I want guys that want to play through us, not to us. Like I want you to want to go to the next level, because it's going to be really tough. Not saying it's not possible, because I played with a bunch of guys at UL that really had no aspirations of going to the next level. They're going to be doctors. They're going to be whatever, that were great teammates, that worked hard, that did everything the right way. But it's you got to be wired right to do that. Like that's tough to do when there's no motivation and no, there's no apple hanging from the tree that you're chasing, So
pitching coach, you were a pitch coach. I was a pitching coach, or you still are. But being a little bit biased towards what you were good at. So like me, I was always biased towards right-handed pitchers with really good breaking balls. And I know a lot of other coaches who were always like, man, when you coach against wherever Carroll's pitching coach at, you're going to see a ton of breaking balls. And I'm like, it's right. Like I know Chad Aber at Sam East would say it all the time, man, when I was coaching against Salford, when he was there, a ton of breaking balls. I coach against him when he's at Barb, and we're facing Jack Walker, who throws 92, and he's throwing a ton of breaking balls. Like, so I was wondering if you were biased towards the lefties with the good changeups, because I mean that's who you were.
I think that I've been asked that question a handful of times, and I guess it's funny that now our two frontline starters are both lefties with good changeups, but they both got really good breaking balls too. So I think the biggest thing for me was that was definitely an easier transition. The communication was easier, I guess, right? Because I understood.
Right.
I understood how they were.
A lot of movements and hands.
Yeah. And I definitely felt like, throwing a changeup, at least for me, was natural. I threw the same grip my entire life. I got it taught to me by my dad and by Tom House when I was 10, and just threw it the same way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
Threw it the same way my whole life. So, I obviously got lucky there, and my dad put me in a position to learn from one of the best.
Nice. Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, no doubt. So, but as far as I chased a good breaking ball my whole life. So I spent a lot of time trying to develop that pitch, whereas the changeup was just kind of more natural. And usually, very rarely do you have a guy that is really good or elite at pronating and supinating. Like usually they do one, right? Usually you throw a good breaking ball.
Yep.
You throw a good breaking ball, you throw a good changeup.
And find the guys that can do both elite, they're going to be really, really
special.
Really good.
Yep. And so I think that's the cool thing about the technology now is there's so many different ways to, adjust the grip and seam shift the ball and cut it, but get it to sink back and turn over and get depth on the changeup, stuff like that. So,
and not only that, but us as coaches are able to learn through, like you said, Twitter. Like I get a lot of my information from there. Just other people are putting out so much content that's readily available. I don't know how these coaches, and like in Coach Robe's day, like how they even knew about some of the other stuff that people were doing, or anything like
Yep.
that. Probably definitely a lot tougher than it is for us.
No, I say that all the time, man. If you don't know now, you just don't want to know.
Yeah.
Like I could I told somebody the other day because they were just kind of asking me, basically how do I want to learn, how do I navigate through this world? Where do I go basically to learn? Um, and I rattled off a handful of I guess reputable brands and people that I trusted. But I told them like, look, man, I could if you commit to it, I could get my mom to learn pitching in a month. Like
Mhm.
if she spent a lot of time in a month or two, she would have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Now, would she be able to coach it and teach it? Probably not. But that's where your playing career comes into play, right? It's just a matter of understanding the information now and then translating it and making it usable for the athlete. But yeah, no, I think that I was lucky, man, as far as like going back to kind of favoring a certain pitcher, a certain type of pitcher. I was so lucky with my career. It took me all over the place, and I got coached by some of the best coaches in the world. And so and in the game with obviously with Glenn at Barb, and then Coach Robe, Terry Burrows, um, the my coaches in the Cape Cod League to some of the minor league guys I spent time around the Bledsoe agency and just I mean I could go on and on. Like it was by no chances was it like I'm a self-made man or self-made pitcher. Like it took a
Right.
village. And so I got exposed to a lot of quality information for a consistent amount of time and just stayed consistent with it. And so I got lucky in that aspect. As far as trying to, just understanding both sides of it, right? Not just the lefty changeup or the pitchability lefty, right? But like, how does the body move? What's the best way to increase velo? Weighted ball stuff, training, power output, just all kind of the different avenues you can go. And I think that, like I always tell people, pitching is so complex. There is no like golden key. There is no key that's going to unlock everything, right? Um, you're just trying to kind of put yourself in the best positions possible. And, now with at least as far as pitch shapes go and repertoires, like put yourself in um, the best space or categories possible with the numbers to where they blend and they work off each other and you throw them enough in certain counts and, total usage, stuff like that. So, um, it is again. It's funny that our two frontline arms right now are the
Yeah, that
same
is funny. Literally,
carbon
just
copies, a little bit of
look
me,
a little
but
bit like
better.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's great.
obviously
And
me,
that's
but
what
better.
I mean, that's like people talking about like with the flat fastball back in the day. Like I remember when I was playing high school baseball, guys come in like, oh, it's flat. This fastball sucks. And I'm like,
Yeah,
hey, what the hell does that even mean? Like I get it straight, but it's still hard to hit. Like I'm still with
no
it.
doubt, no doubt.
And I mean, you look at guys like Craig Kimbrell and Josh Hader, and I mean, those dudes are making living off of flat fastballs.
And I
Um,
tell our guys all the time, like it's flat technically is movement. Like
right.
it's deviating off of the line that it's supposed to be on.
Yeah.
So it's movement. Like if it followed its line, we'd probably have more of a problem. Like if it
Exactly.
was just following gravity, we'd have a problem. So
That's where you're seeing a big shift now. Like, I mean, I remember when I was in high school or even early college, it was sinkers were the pitch. It was the thing. Need a sinker, need a sinker. And surely me, I just throw balls that just stay on a string the entire. I can't get a fastball to move to save.
yeah,
I was like, I couldn't. I'd had to
yeah.
slide my thumb about 6 inches up the ball. Oh yeah, I got that one to sink, and it was about 83. I was
I
like,
was
I
about to
can't.
say you're throwing a
I might as well
changeup
just
at
throw my
that point.
changeup. I mean, it's the
Yeah,
same pitch. So I mean, I couldn't get my fastball to move. But back then it was big. Hey, everybody that was really freaking good was throwing upper 90 sinkers. And now,
yeah.
I mean, dude, you're almost seeing the sinker get I mean, it's getting banged at the big league level right now. Like it's getting torched, and a lot of people are
Well,
going towards more breaking balls, cutters, and then ride heaters. But yeah, sinkers. So it's kind of funny the meta of pitching, how it's kind of
yep.
shifting away from sinkers and then
Well,
more.
the sinker thing with me, like I tell our guys, like if you can imagine, a strike zone where it would be like you see on the broadcast now, I basically, and I've done this with them. I've just put tape. I would just draw an X And I'm like, that's where the majority of barrels are going to be right now. Like that's just how they're taught to hit, right?
It is. Yep.
It's chest over the plate, butt back, and it's turned, right? Kind of on that back leg or back hip. So it's a lot of there's not very many like flat bats. You know,
Right.
very few
I
guys are
feel it's kind
above
of
the
like the
baseball.
hitters are going to get really good at what they see more of.
Yep.
It's simple. So it's like, because I was talking to Donovan LaSalle last year at our place, and he's like, Coach Carroll, how was it like when you were at Sulphur and like playing in this district? Like, what is it like to compare it to now? I said, it's not even close. Like,
Yep.
there's a 90 arm in every team in this district. I said, when I played, I mean, if you threw upper 80s, like you were dominating high school kids. Like, it's just
No
that's
doubt.
what it was. So, and it's like now y'all have them sprinkled all over the place. I'm like, the hitters are better. Like, y'all are hitting that velocity. Like, when I was in high school, if I faced 90, I'm done. I'm toast. Like,
Yeah. It
I'm
looked
going
like 100.
out 95% of the time. Like, it's not
Yeah.
happening. I
Yep.
said, but you guys, like, y'all see it so much that y'all become adaptable to it. So I think
Yep.
that's what's always going to be. Pitching is always going to be ahead of hitting, I think. But
For sure.
with that being said, I think the pitching meta is always going to be changing. Because
Yep.
I think the
Well, and I
more
think
that the
that's
hitters are going to be facing, they're going to get better at hitting.
no
So if
doubt.
it's a ton
Well,
of bread,
I think that's why you're seeing some of these like there are some pitchability aspects coming back into the game. You
right?
know, like and I think that's why our two lefties are having such great success. Um, is because, and we do have a lot of power arms that are uber talented, you
Mhm.
know, and fit like the modern mold of a pitcher right now with the elite fastball, you know, and a high spin stuff, secondary stuff, and high spin fastballs that they can pitch at the top of the zone. But man, our lefties are just, I mean, Chase Morgan, obviously, freshman All-American, uber talented, uber competitor, all the stuff you want, right? I mean, the kid's throwing 88 to 90 with
Yep.
a good running fastball, a plus breaking ball, but like analytically, if you looked at it, you'd be like, this is probably going to get hit, but it doesn't, right? Because he can execute it and it comes out of the same tunnel and all that stuff. And the changeup really for him is a third pitch, but it's a good pitch. It's not a great pitch. Like none of the analytics would make you go, that kid's elite, but he does all the old school stuff that is kind of like forgotten about a little bit. And
Mhm.
so I think that you're going to see that. I think it's already coming back, but I think you're going to see that coming back. And the guys that can coach it and teach it and kind of know how to help them blossom a little bit in their
And I think that's
careers.
where it's tough on y'all's end, like recruiting guys, because it's like, man, if you go out and see a guy, a lefty, that's like, I don't know, 83 to 86, and he's getting tons of whiffs, like you're like, man, there's got to be some deception, but it's so hard. You can't, we don't have anything to grade deception. You know what I'm
No,
saying? How tough
it's
it is
tough.
to hit. Because then you're constantly thinking in your head, okay, well, he's getting tons of whiffs, but how good is this team he's facing? You know what I'm
No
saying?
doubt.
This team
Yep.
really bad, and that's why his numbers are imploded. And it's hard for y'all to kind of go all in on a guy, and then he gets on campus and he's getting lit up, and then now you kind of look like, well, maybe he wasn't. Maybe that team he was facing just wasn't that. So it's tough on y'all because high school competition levels vary so
Yep.
much, and the quality of the hitter they face, and it's hard to find those outlier unicorn guys that are still spotty command guys that are 83, 86 that get whiffs and just get outs, period.
Yep.
They fill
No
up the
doubt.
home, but it's hard to take a risk on those guys now because it's so hard to I guess grade.
Yep.
Whereas everything else, velocity is easy to grade. It's a number. If this
Yeah.
number
No
and
doubt.
this number, it's better. It's simpler
Yep.
to grade. But the deception thing, it's so tough to grade. You can't grade it. It's tough.
No, I think that's where you like that. Just I don't say how hard are you recruiting, but it's how many times have you seen the kid throw? You know, like if he's faced quality opponents at his level and he's dominating his level,
And he keeps doing it. Yeah.
it's just it is what it is, right? Like there's some validity to that. He's validating it through his production, right, and through that outing or those outings.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, you're right. There's no doubt about it, and I think like the quote unquote sexy thing is to have a bunch of guys that
That
throw
throw.
hard and look the part and throw crazy breaking balls. And by no, and I love him to death. By no stretch of the imagination is Andrew Ramon sexy when he goes out there. You know, that's our Friday night starter. But
Yeah.
it's anywhere from 84 to 90. The mechanics aren't great, right? Like it's not like it looks pretty. But he's big, strong, competes harder than anybody I've really been around in a long time. Can throw all his pitches
Y'all
for
have good
strikes.
it's y'all have a diverse staff. I mean, you got some
No
left
doubt.
there. I interviewed Cash on this channel too. There's weird deception. He's throwing from first base side behind lefties. You got Morgan. You have some deceptive righties. You got power arm righties. Like that.
Yep.
That's to me makes a good pitching staff. Like if you had a bunch of those guys that are 95 to 97 with really good breaking balls,
Yep.
I don't think you would be really good. I really don't. I think eventually it would
I
catch
agree.
up to you, and you're just running out a bunch of copy paste pitchers out of the pen. It's all the same guys. So
I agree.
I've had that for a while. I've had some ex players were asking me like, "Coach, do you think it's hard to hit in high school?" I said, "I do." I said the reason I do is because of y'all's scale of velocities that you could be facing from night in to night out.
It's true.
I said from 72 to 92, it's tough. It's a different
Yeah.
thing. And I mean, you're not talking about different. Well, y'all see curveballs. No. We're talking about heaters at 72, and
Yeah.
then the next day we'll face 92. It's different. Like in college, I feel like that speed range. It's easier to narrow down your timing. Like
No question.
obviously, it's harder to hit in college than it is in high school. But that's what I was trying to help my high school guys understand that. Hey, I get it. It's tough. It's not easy. It's a lot harder than people make it out to be.
No doubt. No, that's things that like with Stephen Cash, for example, he was a little more over the top last year. Um, it was more of an attempt to make it like a traditional lefty with a good breaking ball, which he has good feel for spin and he can
Mhm.
spin it. And they really didn't have a ton of lefties at last year in the bullpen. And so, they were trying to get that out of him. And he just wasn't really comfortable up there in our first conversations, kind of once I got the job. And it was like, where do you want to throw from? Like, where are you comfortable? Right.
That's
And
what he's telling me. He was switching back and forth from third base side, first base side.
yeah, and we were swapping there. Like we spent a little time where, in an effort for deception, it was like lefties was easy for him because it was a ton of sliders and it was glove side stuff. So, but when he faced a righty for a little while, we were swapping to the other side so that his changeup would tunnel a little better through the middle of the plate and it wasn't such a harsh angle because it is tough to locate that harsh of an angle, especially when you go in with a fastball
Yeah.
or if he at all pulls a slider, it's probably going at his feet.
It's
It's
very
tough.
minimal
So
range for error.
correct. And so we were bouncing around a little while and we finally landed on just like this is I actually feel more comfortable and it's just easier, more consistent on one side. And so we landed on that side. But I mean we just did it. I did it with JT Etheridge, who's one of a JUCO kid out of Meridian, big, big power righty, anywhere from 92 to 95. Crazy spin on his secondary stuff, like great feel for breaking balls, throws kind of a Vulcan split change that he didn't have really. Another guy that's like big supinator. So forever was trying
The
to
easiest.
pronate
Yeah.
the ball.
Head to the
So we,
split.
yeah. So we just headed to like this kind of Vulcan split grip and he cuts it and it's filthy. Right. But same thing, always struggled with, throwing strikes, come in the zone. And so we made some adjustments and then we shifted him all the way over to one side of the plate. I'm sorry, one side of the rubber. And it was almost more of just a visual thing for him more than anything was like, I feel like I have more room. So
Yeah.
like, I
Placebo effect.
trust myself. Yeah. So like, I feel like I don't have to be perfect. And
Mhm.
then it's led to, his strike percentage is going way up, end zone rates going way, like everything's going up and then the production goes up, so, but I think that like that's combining new school and old school, like that's kind of an old school thing. Like, hey, move to this side of the rubber, manipulate the ball a little more,
Yeah. It is.
and then combining that with, okay, now, and that's what I always tell them, we're using the numbers, we're using the product, like the people process product. Products last because I think if we take care of the first two, product's going to take care of itself, right? And then
Right.
we'll just make sure that the numbers tell us we're headed in the right direction. And then if they're telling us that it's not, then we're going to change the process,
Yeah. Just don't change the people.
Yeah, don't change the people. Yeah, don't change the people. Keep being a good person.
Uh, recruiting. So just talk to us a little bit about what are you trying to see when you go out and recruit from pitchers in their outings before games when they're warming up, in between innings with their teammates, on and off the field, and then kind of what's going to be your number one thing that I'm packing up and I'm leaving after I just saw that in a negative
Yeah.
way.
Well, I think the things that at least I'm looking for on the surface level is obviously there's got to be some level of success, at least in high school, right? Like I think at like the JUCO level, numbers are so skewed sometimes. It's just a different world a little bit at some, it's for sure at some places, right? Um, but at the high school level, at least, you want to, they need to be dominating their level to a certain extent. Um, Obviously, there's got to be some intangibles there. There's a floor for velocity to some point, right? But I think for me, it's I just really I don't want to say trust my gut, but when I try and become get as close to them as I can, right? Like build a relationship with them and just be around, even if they know I'm not there. And that's really I'm still new to this a little bit, but my dad has been a recruiting coordinator my whole life. So you're kind of people reading people, right? Like, so there's going to be mistakes made. But just trying to be around them, see how their teammates receive them, right? Like when they come in the dugout or when they're just around, you know, or are they interacting with people? Are they isolated? Um, are their teammates pulling for them, right? Like, do they create an aura of like, hey, we want you to do good. We want, you know what I'm saying? You can feel that. And I know, coaching them, like, when the team wants good things to happen,
That's
you
how I
know?
always found about players that were just really good teammates. You didn't need to see the player. All you needed to see was how bad do the guys in the dugout want him to succeed? Like how pumped
No
up
doubt.
when he made a good play or hit a double or whatever. That
No doubt.
tell you all you needed to know.
And you see that like with our Friday night starter, Andrew Herman. It's again, nothing's pretty. Like it's really a lot of grit. It's gritty. But when that guy goes on the mound, our dugout is electric.
Mhm.
And it's again, he's had great success this year, but it's not like LP for us who's just blowing fastballs by
Yeah.
people, which obviously that's exciting to watch, right? But you would swear like Herm will throw a 73 mile an hour slider and the guy swings and misses. And I mean, our dugout sounds like he just hit 100,
Yeah.
you know? And you can see that. That's pretty black and white if you're just around, you know? I think a lot of the intangible stuff, like you said earlier, there's so many statistics, and these kids are with PBR and everything else. You could do 75% of your evaluation on Twitter or like on the computer. I can find out what's the velo, what's the spin rate. Let me watch some video from the front, from the side, from the back. How's he moving? Height, weight. Let me call and get his grades. Let me call his high school coach and his summer coach. Is he a good person? Right? Does he do the right things? You find out about how he's raised, his family, all that stuff. I can do that in the office. I would say that's the easy part of the job.
What's
But
crazy is because like when me and you were growing up, I guess we'd probably say that like we wanted to play in front of the college coaches, but nowadays these kids don't even understand that you don't need to play in front of any of them, really.
no,
Like once you
no,
get good enough, they'll be there, or
they will
once they
be
get
there.
good enough, they'll be there. But they don't realize that. They realize or they think nobody's there, and it's like that plays an effect, and it's like they don't realize about social media and the access that
Yeah.
a lot of these coaches have. And I
And
mean,
I think that's what separates because it's I think it's easier now than ever to build a really talented, and I'll just say pitching staff, because like you could build a really talented pitching staff. There's arms everywhere.
there is.
Like Matthew Holzhammer, is a JUCO guy at
Yeah.
Oklahoma for
Well,
us. Has had a great year. Was a first base, played both. Right. We found that guy. We signed that guy. I mean, a month before the fall. Guys up to 95 with
yeah.
elite
Huge
off
energy
speed
too.
pitches.
Huge
Huge
energy.
energy.
I see the
Like
barge every time after early in the
no
year. You
doubt.
see this huge fist pump running off the field. It's awesome.
Like he's a straight up dog, man. I mean,
Mhm.
he could pitch in a lot of places.
Yeah.
So like I said, there's just it's easier now, I think, than ever to find those big arms and find the talent, right? And you can do that baseline evaluation right here on your iPad or your laptop or your phone, even. I think where me and Zach and Coach Lafleur, our recruiting coordinator, are trying to separate ourselves is one, making sure we're going to the right areas, you know, and the culture here is so important. And outside of pitching, like that's really the bedrock of our organization, and that's what Coach Robe was, moral standards and doing things the right way and being involved in the community and community service hours and just representing the University of Louisiana the right way, and
That's why
being
I was
different.
so happy when Deggs got the job. I mean, I knew it was clear cut. Like whenever it did open, I was like, Deggs is gonna take that job, or he's gonna go.
Yep.
And then when he did, it's just because like the connection they had, and then when he came there, and I think it was 14. I don't remember when he
I think
actually
it was 12.
12. Yeah, it was
13.
my freshman year at McNeese. My freshman
Yeah.
year at McNeese, he was at UL. I remember playing that team, and then just the fact that they had that connection, they were part of that really good team, and then him coming back because I knew when he got there, he was going to uphold whatever Robe.
Yep.
He was going to give as much respect as he could to Robe and whatever he did, and with the
Yep.
program that. I mean, other people would have maybe said that to look good,
Yep.
you know what I mean, and then not upheld their end of the bargain when they got in. But
Yep.
I think he's done a great job with that.
No doubt he has. And like I said, that's the big thing for us is we got to check out and make sure that the character checks out, right? Like, are they going to fit here? And are they going to be able to uphold those standards, right? That maybe other places don't have. Like we ask a lot of our guys, not, I mean, obviously on the field, but physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like you got a lot to uphold here that's different than a lot of places. And the community knows, and that's what I always stress to our guys here is this is one of the few places which obviously we're classified as a mid-major, but it's Power Five feel in the city for
Right.
sure, obviously, and we compete on a national level. But it's everybody's gonna know your face, everybody's gonna know who you are. When you're out and about, they're gonna know what you're doing, right? Like it's different. Whereas that's not you don't have that everywhere, and so it's important that they're good people. Again, back to people, process, and products. So for me, after that baseline evaluation that you could do anywhere, it's getting out and being around them, and that's why our camps are a big thing for us. And Coach Deggs, loves our camps because he gets a chance to be around them and interact with them. And so, I think for some kids, sometimes that's like a slap in the face a little bit, like, oh, I need to come to camp. It's like, no, man, like you should take that as like we're inviting you into our home.
Mm.
Like is basically how you should look at that. And so, that gives us a chance to get to know you and you to get to know us even deeper. So I think that's the biggest thing for at least for me, and obviously I know Coach LaFleur is the same way, is just trying to build a relationship with them enough to figure out, how are they as people, and again, kind of back to how their teammates interact with them, what their coaches have to say about them. I mean, shoot, man, I know. I mean, my dad will go as far as like when he's in the school or on campus, like he'll ask the janitors, like like you can get. I think that's where like that's the separator, if you will, in the recruiting space. So is figuring who they are out as people, and like I said, that goes into the teammates, the people that are around them the most, and then
Yeah.
obviously the obvious stuff. How do they carry themselves? How do they like? Ideally, I want to see them enough to where they do struggle. Like, how do they if they give up a run?
I
If
feel
the
like that's
umpire's
the
squeezing
toughest
them?
thing as a recruiting coordinator. Is like you might be like, I don't know, I want to go see so and so struggle. And it's like every time I
Yeah,
go, he freaking throws a no hitter or one hitter. Like he never fails. Like I
yeah,
want to see
it,
that game, and then you hear about it and it happens, but you weren't able to be there. And it's like, man, I
yeah,
wish I'd been in the stands to see how he's interacting, see how he's handling things.
yeah.
That's tough.
Well, and that's the again. It's at the end of the day, it's people judging people.
Yeah.
It's like
I
you're
feel
gonna
like as
have
a
some
recruiting
mistakes
coordinator, though, like watching hitters, you get to see that a little bit more often, that struggle,
for
than
sure.
as a guy looking for an arm. Because I mean,
Yep,
one, I'm only getting to probably go catch him once a week, because he's only throwing. I'm probably only catch him twice a month, and it's like if he's
yep,
dominating that level like the guys y'all are after, anyways. I mean, it's
yep.
few and far between if you're going to see that kid struggle.
Well, and I think that's where, like you were talking about earlier, the disparity in competition level, especially like when they're playing on their team. Like, um, you may play a really good high school team and you may play a really bad one in the same week, in the same day. So that's where summer ball comes into play, obviously, and you can level that playing field a little bit. Uh, and I think it's easier now than ever to see the guys that you want to see, because these events, I mean, it's you know the first time I went to Atlanta, it's all the best players from every state
Yes. Yep.
right there. It's and so it really is, as much as I not that I dislike summer ball, but as much as sometimes I think it gets abused with some kids, it's unfortunately, it is what it is, and we're part of the problem, right? Like, college baseball is part of the problem,
Yeah.
because that's the only time we really get to see them, you know. Um, but it does make it a lot easier to see
I
what you
always
want to
said
see.
that when I was coaching in our district, even when I played, I was like, man, you know what's crazy is that all these colleges in our state, UL, McNeese, LSU, all of them are everywhere around us. Yeah, most of y'all have off days on Monday.
Yep.
Most of them just they played all weekend, gonna get the players off. But no high schools are playing games on Mondays around here. That's what
No.
it was always crazy to me. We always played Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday when we cranked up district and stuff. And it's like, man, nobody's utilizing that opportunity to, hey, let's play some games on Monday for you guys to come out and go catch a game right down the road, especially if it's a
Yep.
local game. Like, I'm
No
sure there's
doubt.
local games that you're like, man, they're playing, but we're playing on a Tuesday night. We got a midweek against Prairie View or whatever that
Yep.
you can't go catch the game. But if they have more games on Mondays, I feel like y'all could probably go catch some local guys a
No
lot more.
doubt. No, you're completely right. Well, what ends up happening is we have to leave. You leave on a Thursday the night before you play
Mm-hmm.
Southern Miss. And you to go watch. You go see what you want to see.
Yeah.
Um, that's just part of the job, right? But I do think, like I said, these, as much as, again, I think sometimes it gets abused, which is another thing that I think is a part of the equation of recruiting that I look at, is like, what's been their workload, like, because at a lot of places you'll end up with, in these smaller, more isolated towns, and the schools are a little smaller, these kids get, I mean, straight up abused, basically,
Yeah. You're
you
talking 2
know?
hours a week at 150.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's not fair to them, but like, you have to take that to account. Like, you don't want to bring, damaged goods here,
Yeah.
you know, and that's where kind of like the business side a little bit unfortunately comes into play. It just kind of is what it is, right? When you're trying to build a roster. Um, so there's a lot on the recruiting side to take into account, but again, I do think more now than ever, it's a lot easier to evaluate and figure out, does that kid belong, and has he progressed over the years, right? Like, I can pull video from 2020 when he was in 8th grade to when he was a junior, and so
Right.
you can see the body change, you can see the movements change, you can see the velo, the spin, that you can see so much. um, I think that's the big thing now, is, at least for us, is, you know like, coach, is he an OKG, as with Coach Diggs? Is he our kind of guy? You know, and he says that all the time. And we have a recruiting, our recruiting database, but we have a score on that. Like, when we evaluate players and we put them into our database and we rank players and we put our board together, we have an OKG category.
That's sweet.
Um,
You have a score in that
and
category?
we
The
have a
Oscar
score.
score?
Yeah, we have a score. So that's what I'm saying. We score that out, and that
Uh-huh.
has an impact on their total score, which inevitably affects whether maybe they're, a walk-on guy for us. Is it a baseline offer? Is it a mid-level offer? Is it a high-level offer?
Do y'all
Like
use
it.
that score with your active roster as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that is basically Coach Deggs is. We've Coach Deggs kind of loves numbers and has kept. He's done that kind of on his own, like almost a study, right?
I knew he
He's
loved
looked at.
numbers the other day when I
He
heard
loves
him
numbers.
I think it was an interview after it wasn't the Coastal series. What series was I can't remember, but he was doing an interview with somebody, and I think he was
Yeah.
saying what y'all's average was on balls swung at in the zone or something.
Yeah.
Like, he just threw it up there like that.
Yeah.
And that wasn't a question that he was prepared for at all.
No.
There's no
Yeah.
way. And he just went boom, boom with those 2 numbers. I was like, whoa.
Well, he's obviously our department, our SID department, does a great job with all our, like, in-house statistics. But we we brought on True Media this year. That was one of the things we got or recommended we get whenever I got here. And so he's still he's figuring that out. Like, he loves the new school stuff. Sometimes he is
He
trying to
wants it
figure
so
out how to,
Yeah,
yeah,
he just
he's
wants
trying
it
to
given,
figure out how to get access to it. So
He
like,
needs
he
that
came
little
in.
mic on True Media where you just ask it something and it just
Exactly.
AI maybe just generate
Yeah.
it.
So he's figuring that side of it out. But no, man, he literally, it was awesome. And me and Zach kind of asked him for it after he showed us some of these like OKG scores and like how he ranked players out in his previous rosters at UL and previous schools dating back a long time. And obviously you start to see trends with everything. And so we basically told him, like, hey, go through that again and grade this out for us, and then give us intangibles that are associated with that score. Like,
Yeah,
why did you give him a
character.
470? Yeah, why'd you give him a 470 out of 500? Why did that guy get a 300? And so
I'd
then we
love to
literally,
know who's at the top end of the Coach Deggs scale.
I know, well, obviously Kyle is.
Kyle is up there. That's
Kyle's
awesome.
up there. And there's obviously a handful, and it's funny, man. It directly like, more than anything, that OKG score like almost directly correlates with, like, all those guys had great careers, and all
Yeah.
those guys were great teammates, and all those guys, like, everybody speaks highly of them, right? And again, it's not anything. We're not reinventing the wheel. It's just putting standards to that score, right? And then it allows us to. It's just a more consistent, right? Instead of
I always
me
said
going to
that,
see
dude,
the
if you
guy.
value something, you got to measure it. If you're not measuring it and you're saying that you value it, then you really don't.
Yep.
Uh,
You asked the question earlier, like, what's the one thing that would make you just leave the game? Like, if any of those, because we have the negatives to that as well. Like, what impacts the score positively, what impacts the score negatively. And if any of that stuff were to happen, or there's just some inkling of that, right? Like, if it's not an OKG, or that score is not up to the standard, then we're just spinning our wheels. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
And I mean, there's been, without saying any names, there's been guys that, because I think this would be good to hear. There's been kids that have come in that are uber talented, that are good kids, great kids, that the parents were the reason that we pulled the scholarship.
Yeah, that they
Or that,
far down. Yeah.
yeah, that like the parents were impacted the kid in a negative way, you know?
I bet Deggs has seen it a lot too, where the kid came in, OKG score wasn't that great, and then it skyrocketed just from being there for 2-3 years.
Yep. No, there's no question. There's been a lot of that. And that's why, like, part of the score is obviously, you need to be around the kid, right? Like, there is some just, like, it's not, measured, if you will, right? It's gut feeling. It's just interaction. It's things like that that can't be measured. So that's where being around the kid is very important. And that's why our camps are so important to us, and to him, because it gives us a chance to vet that out and confirm it to the best of our ability, which is really the most important thing to us.
Well, that's good. All right, guys, that's going to be it for episode 4. Thank you, Gunnar, for joining us today. And y'all don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel.